Every cycle there comes a moment when doubt overshadows belief, when even the strongest hands start to shake, and the question echoes across market, has XRP already peaked? It's the question every investor wrestles with when momentum slows and the world starts whispering that the best days are behind us. But what if this moment of hesitation isn't the end of XRP's story, but the pause before its real beginning? What if what looks like the top is actually the foundation for the next phase of growth that no one is ready for yet? Welcome back to Crypto Equation, where we uncover the truth behind digital markets and remind you that conviction only matters when the crowd is uncertain. Right now, fear is louder than logic. Price action has cooled, headlines have faded, and social media has shifted to the next trend. It's easy to believe that maybe XRP's time has passed, but markets don't peak when people stop talking about them. They peak when everyone thinks they can't lose. The silence you're seeing right now is not the sound of failure, it's the sound of accumulation. Because behind the scenes, something massive is brewing. The institutions that once ignored XRP are quietly preparing for the very thing retail investors have been waiting for: utility at scale. XRP isn't just a price on a chart, it's a bridge for value, a digital instrument built to connect global liquidity. And that mission is far from complete. To understand whether XRP has truly peaked, you have to step back from the chart and look at the system it was designed to fix. Cross-border finance is still broken. Trillions move each year through outdated systems like SWIFT that can take days to settle. Costs remain high, errors are common, and smaller economies are left behind. That problem hasn't gone away, which means XRP's purpose still exists. As long as that inefficiency remains, there's room for XRP to grow. Because price follows function, and the world has only started to realize how valuable that function is. Think about the cycles we've seen before. Every major innovation goes through a stage where the public loses interest just before mass adoption hits. In 2014, people thought Bitcoin had peaked forever after crashing from $1,000 to $200. In 2018, people said Ethereum was dead when it dropped 90% from its high. But what happened next changed everything. Adoption caught up to belief. The same story is unfolding again. XRP's recent cycles weren't the end. They were the foundation for what's coming. When regulatory clarity arrives, when Ripple's partnerships mature, and when real payment corridors open at scale, XRP won't trade based on speculation anymore, it will trade based on necessity. That's when the real value discovery begins. The idea that XRP has already peaked ignores how early we still are in this transition. Ripple has spent years in the trenches building relationships with banks, governments, and payment providers. They've survived regulatory battles that would have crushed most companies. And now, with legal clarity closer than ever, they stand on the edge of global expansion. The infrastructure is ready, the rails are being laid, all that's left is activation. When that moment comes, price won't move gradually, it will adjust to reflect the new reality overnight. That's not a theory, it's how every major liquidity asset in history has behaved. When utility turns on, speculation becomes irrelevant. What drives the next phase of XRP's rise isn't retail excitement, it's institutional demand. And institutional demand operates on a different scale entirely. These entities don't buy a few thousand tokens, they secure reserves large enough to sustain multi-trillion-dollar flows. To them, price volatility is background noise. They care about efficiency, speed, and cost reduction. That's exactly what XRP provides. So, has XRP peaked? Not even close. It hasn't yet entered the phase of true utility where price and purpose merge. Right now, XRP exists in the gap between belief and recognition. Retail sees potential, institutions see proof, but the wider market still hasn't connected the dots. That's why the opportunity still exists. The quiet before the storm is always mistaken for the end, every time. The beauty of XRP's design is that it doesn't need hype to survive. It was built to function even when no one's watching. It's the silent infrastructure of a financial revolution happening beneath the surface. Each partnership announcement, each corridor launch, each new regulation adds another piece to the puzzle. And one day that puzzle will be complete enough for the world to finally see the full picture. That's when the phrase "has XRP peaked" will sound ridiculous. What most people call a peak is often just the midpoint of the journey. Early adopters know that value creation follows utility, not emotion. The longer XRP functions in real-world use cases, the more trust it earns. And trust is what turns technology into legacy. That's what will define XRP's next chapter. The market doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in waves designed to test conviction. Every dip, every stall, every delay serves a purpose. It separates those who truly understand the asset from those who are only here for the noise. If you're still here, still researching, still holding through uncertainty, then you're already ahead of most. Because conviction during quiet times is what builds wealth during explosive ones. The next 3 years will be critical. Global regulation will mature faster than expected. Financial institutions will finalize their digital strategies. Central bank digital currencies will need interoperability, and Ripple's technology is already the front runner to provide it. Once those systems connect, XRP becomes indispensable. That's not speculation, that's progress. You can already see it in the headlines if you know where to look. Ripple expanding corridors in Asia, Latin America, the Middle East. Governments exploring blockchain integration. Financial giants like MasterCard and Visa acknowledging the future of instant settlement. All roads lead to one outcome. The token that can bridge everything becomes priceless. XRP isn't just part of that story, it's the story. The reason people think it's peaked is because they mistake temporary exhaustion for completion. The market got tired before the mission did. That's normal. Every long-term asset goes through that phase where faith gets tested. But those moments define the future winners. The investors who sold during doubt always regret it when clarity returns, because clarity always returns. And when it does, the revaluation is brutal for those who left early. When the next wave comes, it won't look like the rallies of the past. It won't be driven by retail traders chasing momentum or social media hype. It will be driven by adoption, by utility, by real-world necessity. Because the global financial system is moving toward instant settlement and interoperability, whether people like it or not, that transition can't happen without something like XRP. That's the piece most people overlook. They focus on charts without asking what the world actually needs. And what the world needs is liquidity that moves as fast as data. XRP was built to be that bridge. So no, it hasn't peaked. It hasn't even started doing what it was created to do. The price action you've seen so far was just the warm-up, the speculative prelude to real adoption. When the system flips from speculation to utility, everything changes. The same thing happened with Bitcoin once institutions began using it as a hedge instead of a trade. The same thing happened with Ethereum when developers began building entire ecosystems on it. XRP's version of that moment will come when banks, governments, and payment providers depend on it, not as an option but as an obligation. And that moment is coming. The pieces are already in motion. Ripple's victories in the regulatory arena have paved the way for clarity not just for XRP, but for the entire industry. That clarity is what institutions have been waiting for. They can't move trillions without legal certainty. Now that the fog is lifting, the doors are opening. The players who sat on the sidelines are preparing to enter. They don't announce it until they're ready. They move quietly, accumulate discreetly, and then execute suddenly. When that execution phase begins, XRP's liquidity will explode overnight. That's when the true price discovery happens. That's when those who asked, "Has XRP peaked?" will realize the real climb was just beginning. The truth about peaks is that they're only visible in hindsight. By the time you know it's a peak, it's already passed. But XRP's structure tells a different story. Unlike hype-driven coins, XRP's value isn't tied to popularity, it's tied to function. Its design guarantees that as usage increases, value must follow. That's how liquidity mechanics work. To handle global scale volume, XRP must carry a higher per token value, otherwise, the system can't function efficiently. That's not opinion, that's mathematics. So even if price consolidates today, it's not stagnation, it's compression. The longer the coil tightens, the stronger the breakout will be. History repeats because human psychology doesn't change. People give up right before the payoff. They lose patience during the buildup and chase when the move begins. That's why the markets are designed the way they are. They reward patience and punish emotion. If you can understand that you can stay ahead of 90% of participants, because what feels like the end to most is just the reset for the few who understand cycles. The current silence in the XRP market is exactly that, a reset, a quiet before the next acceleration. The foundation is being rebuilt at the institutional level, not the retail level. By the time it reaches public awareness, it will already be priced in. That's why conviction matters. This is the phase where conviction gets tested. The phase that separates spectators from believers. The next time XRP moves, it won't just be another rally, it will be a redefinition of value. And those who held through disbelief will finally see what they were waiting for. By 2026, the entire crypto landscape will look different. Regulations will be in place, digital currencies will be common, and blockchain interoperability will be the new standard. XRP will sit at the intersection of all of it, quietly powering the global movement of value. The people holding it will no longer need to defend it because its utility will speak for itself. The irony is that once XRP succeeds, it will disappear into the background. Just like the internet, nobody will talk about the protocol, they'll only care that it works. That's when you'll know it's peaked not in price, but in purpose. The price will just follow naturally as the world integrates what Ripple has built. So has XRP already peaked? Not at all. It's paused. It's resting before the next climb. It's preparing for the moment when speculation fades and necessity takes over. The real peak will come when XRP becomes so essential that its movement affects economies, not markets. That's the future we're moving toward, and it's closer than most people realize. The narrative will shift. The same skeptics who doubted XRP will call it inevitable. The same analysts who ignored it will start predicting new highs. But by then, the early holders will already be positioned. They won't need the validation because the results will speak louder than any opinion. They'll remember this time the silence, the boredom, the uncertainty. They'll remember asking themselves if XRP had peaked. And they'll smile because they'll know the answer was always no. This is the accumulation era, the final chapter before utility takes over. Every holder who understands that will hold stronger than ever because they're not chasing hype, they're holding history. The greatest irony of all is that XRP's biggest leap will happen when the fewest people are watching. That's always how revolutions begin, quietly. Then suddenly, everyone claims they saw it coming. The truth is, you don't need to predict the top or the bottom. You just need to recognize progress when it's happening in real time. XRP is still progressing, still integrating, still expanding. The lawsuits didn't stop it, the market cycles didn't kill it, and the silence won't erase it. It's still here because it's still needed. And anything that solves a trillion-dollar problem doesn't vanish, it evolves. So the next time someone asks you if XRP has already peaked, tell them the truth. The peak isn't behind us, it's ahead of us. The journey isn't over, it's only just beginning. And when the world finally realizes what this asset was built for, the price charts of the past will look like the prologue to a much bigger story. The story of how early believers turned conviction into freedom. The story of how patience outperformed panic. The story of how a digital asset once dismissed as a gamble became the foundation of the new financial era. XRP hasn't peaked, it's preparing. And when it finally moves, the only question left will be who was still holding when the silence broke. This is Crypto Equation reminding you the top is only visible to those who never stop looking forward.